We know big government does not have all the answers. We know there's not a program for every problem. We know and we have worked to give the American people a smaller, less bureaucratic government in Washington. And we have to give the American people one that lives within its means. The era of big government is over.
Welcome back. That was then President Bill Clinton at his 1996 State of the Union address, capturing one of the main tenets of the pro-small government and free market era of American politics. But according to our next guests, that neoliberal period is on its way out, and they have an idea for what should be next. Still with us, New York Times columnist Ezra Klein, and joining the conversation, staff writer at The Atlantic and host of the Plain English podcast, Derek Thompson. They are the co-authors of the new book entitled Abundance, which argues, quote, to have the future we want, we need to build and invent more of what we need. It's great to have you both. I'll jump to Derek this time, and Ezra, you can follow up. But part of this is for the Democrats to actually carry out the building, the actual building of the policies and initiatives that they put out there. And you argue that that's not happening. And I love this book. The chapters, definitely a book two boys wrote. Grow, build, govern, invent, deploy, abundance. But there's a process here that you say is broken in terms of the actual building. Can you explain that?
I think if there's one word or term that defines Donald Trump, it's zero sum. This is a man whose personality does not have space for cooperation. And you see that concept embedded in his presidency. Right? Every single time he identifies something that America doesn't have enough of, he takes away something that we need. Americans don't have enough in manufacturing, so we need less trade. Americans don't have enough housing, so we need less immigration. This is a vision of scarcity, and that's where Democrats should be able to stand up and offer a really compelling countermessage. But many of the places where Democrats hold the most power, places like New York and California, they practice another form of scarcity. They don't build enough houses. They don't build enough energy, and they've gotten in the way of building what citizens need. And so I think that right now, at a time when Democrats, as you talked about in your previous segment, are trying to win a message, they need to embrace an anti-scarcity message that says, let's get it out of our own way and build more of exactly what Americans want.
So Ezra, obviously right now, it's not just about scarcity, it's Donald Trump deliberately slashing federal government, taking it apart, making it smaller, and making it impotent in some ways. But one of the arguments of the book, though, is that though it has to be done smartly, there's room for government to grow, right?
Yeah, we are caught between two parties, one that wants to make government fail and one that doesn't make government work. We are watching with Elon Musk and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Doge. I said they're not just slashing government. They are trying to destroy and corrupt it. This is kleptocracy. They want something more like a Russian oligarchy. Elon Musk goes into the FAA and, hey, look, actually what it really needs to do better is Starlink, which he owns. Right? We've seen this happen in many other countries. The problem for Democrats is they cannot stand up and with the trust of the American people say, we will run the government well. There are many things they do well, many transfer programs they do well. Social Security is a great program. And much of they do poorly, right? There is a huge shift to the right in blue states this time. And if you're from California like I am, and if you watched high-speed rail never get built, if you watched California government construct itself in a way so not enough housing gets built and hundreds of thousands of working-class families have to leave every year, also happening in New York, because of the cost of living, and so then Democrats lose an election based on the cost of living. At some point, you have to look at yourself and say, something has to change. We were talking about how the Democratic Party has its lowest approval ratings ever, and there are no leaders in it right now that people fundamentally trust. And part of that is not just going to be who comes up with a good critique of Donald Trump. Part of it is going to be who comes up with a critique that makes the American people realize that Democrats have understood things that they have also done wrong and are not going to repeat those mistakes in the future.
Yeah, Derek, how do you build the political capital to actually execute this plan in a country in which the Democrats who govern many cities and states have shown themselves uninterested or incapable of building housing, for example, or making the kinds of decisions you're talking about. And the Republicans have convinced wide swaths of the American electorate that actually the problem is government instead of all the billionaires who are really, I think, at fault for making American life difficult in so many ways for just everyday life. How do you build that political capital?
I think it's a great question. I think you build political capital by making the places where you govern an advertisement for your party rather than an advertisement for the opposition. If you look at what's happening in California right now, homelessness is highest. The 5 states that homelessness is highest, including Hawaii, California, Oregon. They're all governed by Democrats. That's not Donald Trump's fault. Many, many things are. That is not. If Democrats want to win, they need to be able to say, vote for us and we'll make America like Oregon. Vote for us and we'll make America like California. And instead, we've created a situation where it's Republicans who can say, vote for Democrats and they'll make America like California. That is turning the places where you have the most power into an advertisement for your opposition rather than yourself. If you want to build, start where we have the power.
On that, I just want to ask what happened. I mean, many would argue that Joe Biden's presidency was one of the most productive presidencies in modern presidential history. Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS and Science, and on and on. So I'm trying to connect what you're saying Democrats aren't doing with what looked like a very accomplished presidency.
It was one of the most
you
legislatively productive presidencies in modern history.
Bring it down to the
and it was, but it takes too long to get things done. So the $42 billion for rural broadband at the center of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. By the end of Biden's term, how many households had it hooked up to broadband? Basically none. The $7.5 billion for electric vehicles. By the end of the term, how many electric vehicle charging stations had it built? A few dozen. These things move too slowly. We run the government too slowly.
And why did it move so slowly?
So, you could go into every one of these, and it's its own special problem. I actually talked about CHIPS and Science quite a bit in the book. Okay. But if you look at, say, rural broadband, there is this highly complex 14-step plan in which states would release a notice of funding opportunity and a notice of intent, and it would go back and forth from the federal government. And it just took too long. We have layered the government in process it doesn't need. Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they want to fire all the bureaucrats. We actually want to empower them. It shouldn't be so hard to act inside the government. The problem right now is Republicans follow orders and Democrats follow rules. And we need a Republican Party that has some independence and some backbone and some defense in the system. And we need a Democratic Party that has not decided that every interpretation from every lawyer, every sort of way of making sure nobody ever commits an act of fraud, that it's all more important than the outcomes they actually get. What we are ultimately arguing here is the Democratic Party needs to refocus on the outcomes it has promised people and not the process it has wrapped itself in.
It's a roadmap. The new book, Abundance, is available for pre-order right now. Goes on sale tomorrow. Co-authors Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, thank you both very much for coming on the show today. I know you have a long day ahead of you, so
Thank you
starting out early with Morning Joe.